Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kamy. My full first name is Kamy, but those that are familiar with me call me Kamy. And hopefully everyone in attendance here becomes familiar with me as well, as we grow in family through Christ, right? So, first I want to start off by saying I am very much protected by God, I feel. And the reason being is because before coming to Christ, I went through a lot of unfortunate, traumatic things at a very young age, but somehow I made it out alive every time. And it's almost as if God just kind of takes my jacket and just does this and turns me to certain people that can help, or, for a temporary time, or a situation that'll lead me to where I need to be next. I went through a lot of abuse. I was forced into prostitution at 19, and homelessness since 18. And because of that, I had a lot of anger toward God, so much to where I just stopped being a Christian altogether. And I ended up turning to witchcraft. It just seemed easier. It seemed like I had more control over my own situation. But generally, that's how things go when you don't have a lot of control over your own life. You turn to things that make you feel like you have some sort of control. And through all of this, in the beginning of my life, before being introduced to this, I probably should have died multiple times. Not could have, should have. There are so many times that I wouldn't even be standing here to this day. I'm not even entirely sure how it would have been possible if it was not for God. Eventually, I hit rock bottom here in Lakeland. I ended up being here because of domestic violence, rape. And they took me from Orlando to here. And I ended up in a homeless shelter after I left the DV shelter. Not really knowing where to go, kind of scared to go back home. So I was just kind of floating around. And eventually, the homeless shelter that I was at was not working for me. And apparently I was not working for it either. So they had kicked me out randomly. I woke up and all I knew was I had to pack all of my stuff in one large garbage bag. And fortunately, a day or two afterwards, I happened to be in the right place at the right time. And that place happened to be Flavor Nation. I remember I was crying to someone else that I knew that was homeless, that I had gotten pretty close with throughout my adventures in homelessness. And I remember it was raining, and during that time, I think they were doing work on the roof, if I'm not mistaken. And I was seen, but not spoken to, because, I don't know, but it wasn't their fault. I just kind of disappeared that day, I feel. But the next day, somehow I ended up running into someone that knew Pastor Abraham and introduced me to him because he said he gave out snacks and stuff, and I was hungry. And I guess Pastor Abraham saw a future in me, saw that there was hope, but also saw, I think he described it was death on me, right? And he offered to take me into his home for the program of Secret Place. And at first I thought, I'm gonna get trafficked. I'm gonna get kidnapped. This is a scam, but let's see where it goes. If anything, I could just run away. But he took me there, and I was welcomed there. In the beginning of all that, he asked me if I was wanting to change my life and know God, and I said yes. And I wasn't lying, because I did have a curiosity to go back. And at that point, I was so desperate in life that I felt like I didn't really have an option. So that is really the reason why I chose to go. And while starting off in the ministry, I will admit I was kind of hard about it. I didn't really accept a lot of things. I had, again, curiosity, but I was so angry with God still and so confused as to why I would be allowed to go through these things that I was fighting it and bickering. I was fighting and bickering with God, and fighting and bickering with Dias and Nancy, just fighting and bickering with everyone, really. But then eventually, I remember I asked a question to Nancy because my hair was growing in. And I asked her if they got any pics and donations, like hair pics for this right here. And she said, generally, no, not really. Then I remember one day I'm coming back from the restaurant and she hands me a bag, like a little gift bag with a pic in it. And I just start laughing because I don't know how to respond to that. But she was like, that's God. And so little things like that kind of kept occurring. And those little small things, I call like seeds, I guess, helped me open up to the thought of trusting in God and, feeling like God was answering my prayers or proving to me, he didn't really have to prove anything to me, but proving to me that I am here, I am listening. Even if it's something as small as a hair pick or a chai. I got invited to go to Tennessee with the ministry, and that was a beautiful experience. Very beautiful people, Christian, and the Warners, his wife, his daughter, the goats. And very beautiful place, so many people there, and it all made me feel like I wanted to not be alive because I have horrible social anxiety. But toward the end, I felt like I just needed to rip it off like a Band-Aid. I was still fighting it, but I knew my soul or my spirit, I don't know which one you call it, really wanted God. Something in me just was like, no, that doesn't feel right. So I was like, I'm just gonna get baptized. How about that? Ripped it off like a Band-Aid. I told Dias, I told Nancy, I told Christian, and we went from there. And I remember after being baptized, for the first time, after getting out of that water, hearing Nancy sing, hearing everyone else sing, as I'm just coming up slowly, right? To me, it was slow. I think it was because it was cold. It felt like I had a family that I've been dying for a very long time. And I felt love and peace and acceptance for the first time in my entire actual life. So I realized that I had a family right in front of me. I still bickered and argued though. But that's because I was just in denial. And that leads me to the trials and errors that I went through after accepting God and trying to become closer with Him. As a Christian, as a follower. With the bickering, arguing still, and it took me a while to actually even pray. It took me a long time to pray, like just talking like how I am now, but to God. I had to sing to God first. And when I did, I asked him to show me a certain sign. I asked him to show me a certain sign for a certain situation. And that night, he gave me a dream. And that dream was the most terrifying dream that I ever had. And believe it or not, it involved ramen noodles, just being poor basically, and like in ruin, not married, single, not married, eating ramen. I hate ramen. And I didn't listen to that dream at all. I was like, no, that's not real. That's not gonna happen. It happened, actually, like immediately the next week when I ran away from the ministry. And I remember when things didn't go well, I called Pastor and I asked him, I didn't even expect him to say yes at all, actually. I asked him if I could come back. And he said, of course. I'll arrange for someone to pick you up. My own family, blood family, doesn't do stuff like that. My own family told me I was homeless at your age, you can do it too. I went through this trauma at your age, you can do it too. My own aunt told me, I can't help you with your phone bill, go find a man that'll help you. Go find one of your little friends that'll help you. I'm not doing that. They've done more for me than my own family has. So that tells me a lot. When I came back, unknowingly, I brought something that was inevitably going to make me miserable. Very miserable, actually. And with that came manipulation, abuse, deception, confusion, and unplanned pregnancy. And I know that's real bad. I've asked God for forgiveness. I've repented, now I just have to keep up with that repentance. And God knew. Of course he knew. Almost immediately when I came back, I think like 2 months later, I got a call saying that I got like a apartment. And little did I know I was pregnant, and that was probably why. But because of the misery that I allowed to take over me and become my weakness, instead of evolving like I was doing, perfectly fine before I had run away, I was devolving as a Christian and a follower. I was starting to reverse back to how I was before acceptance and before praying and stuff like that. And this involved a lot of trauma, but I do believe that God allows for certain trauma to happen. Honestly, if I wasn't put in one traumatic situation, I think that another traumatic situation would have done worse for me. if that makes sense. I pray for things that aren't needed to be prayed for. And I figured out if I pray enough, it happens, but those things that I pray for end up not being things that I need. And I find out the hard way. But it's better to find out that way than to go through that trauma later on in life and just being completely lost. But through this, even through that trauma, I was still given a true family. Although chosen through Christ and through, because I choose to have y'all as a family. And y'all chose me, even though I'm not legally adopted. I was given that family that I needed. And I don't really need anything else. I have them. And now I have a son that's about to come. And so I believe that God has given me people to show me love, to understand what it's like to be loved, and a child to understand what it's like to love and to have patience. Something that I can give love to, and have forever. And I really feel like I'm blessed. I'm going through a lot mentally through all the trauma, but it could always be worse, I feel. But I don't think God's gonna allow that to get worse. It's not. I'm here for a reason, and I'll continue to be here. I'm not going anywhere. You'll have to move away from your house. Okay? And I love you guys. I love you guys, and I know y'all love me, except for you, but yeah. Thank you guys for having me. That was my testimony.